Steve Wiltfong on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Steve, what's going on, man?
Good morning. How we doing?
Really good. Are doing great. I feel like we have to have a little come to Jesus moment here. So you were on with us last Monday, and about 8 hours later, the Dylan Raiola stuff broke. Please tell me you weren't holding out on us, Steve.
Well, obviously, when I put in the crystal ball for Nebraska, that's how I thought it would play out. Now it's recruiting, so you're a little guarded when you've been doing this a long time, and try not to speak in definites and absolutes. Things can change on the fly, and Dylan was continuing to maintain communication with Mike Bobo and Coach Van Gorder and the Georgia staff. But when I put that crystal ball prediction in for Nebraska ahead of the official visit, I felt really good that he'd end up being a Husker based on the intel, and that's what happened.
Steve, are you really that guarded when you're 91% correct?
Well, it's the 9% that haunts
you. Steve, we definitely appreciate you joining us this morning. I know you're super busy. There's some really high-profile guys, not for Nebraska, but in general in the national recruiting scene, that you've kind of got feelers out that they might flip. What are some of the most interesting cases, in your opinion, of that situation?
You're saying nationally, what are the biggest storylines today?
Yeah, like which guys that you think might flip are the kind of the biggest storylines?
Not Nebraska related. Sorry, I got distracted by a text message.
Yeah.
Oh no, all good. We know 8 hours after we have you on, something Nebraska will break, so we're good.
Yeah, no, it should be a good day for Nebraska. The Huskers are in the top 20 of our rankings, number 19 nationally in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings. Guys like Amari Sanders are out there as they go into their announcements, so it should be a strong close. Obviously, the biggest national storylines, will Jeremiah Smith, the number one player in the country, sign with Ohio State? I think he will. But Florida State, Miami, been trying to chip away there. DJ Lagway, the number 2 quarterback in the country, will he sign with Florida? I think he will. But USC trying to come in at the buzzer and change that. Maybe the Aggies as well. KJ Bolden, the number 1 safety in the country, will he sign with Florida State? Or will he go to Georgia or Auburn? 5-star receiver Ryan Wingo, will he sign with Texas? They were talking with Coach Drinkwitz last night. The Raiolas have been trying to reach out to the Wingos and get in there. So we'll see what happens,
It's funny that you bring up Ryan Wingo, because I was asking that question out loud, and no one could really provide a good answer because we don't know, like Steve. With how strong Mizzou is looking this season and how they're set up for next season, that has to be a huge pull for the in-state kid.
Well, particularly with Ryan Wingo, Coach Peeler, Missouri's receivers coach, has got such a track record right now. He developed A.J. Brown, developed DK Metcalf, developed Luther Burden. Mizzou's a top 10 team right now. There's just a lot of excitement and energy around that program. There's a lot of investment around that program. So, they're trying at the buzzer to flip him from Texas, but Ryan loves Texas, so we'll see what happens.
We're talking with Steve Wiltfong, the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, we've got a lot of the usual suspects in the team rankings up at the very top. Your Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama's, Texas is in the top 5, Florida State's in the top 5. Has there been any teams whose efforts, either for the good or the bad, have surprised you at all this year? We used to see Clemson kind of up in that top 5 a lot. They're down at 15 this year. Has anybody's class surprised you at all?
Well, I think when you look at the rating, you look at the standings this year, Texas continues to recruit at a national title level, looking for a 3rd straight top 5 class as they move into the SEC. Oklahoma's in the top 10 for a 2nd straight year. Dan Lanning in Oregon, what they've done on the trail and in the portal is special. Notre Dame's kind of been a mainstay in the top 10 under Marcus Freeman and his staff. Auburn, trying to rebuild that program under Hugh Freeze and company. They start the day number 11. They can finish in the top 10 with some of the fish that they still have out there. There's a lot of energy around that program as well.
Steve, with Evan Stewart now on the market, where do you think the former number 1 prospect ends up?
Which prospect? I'm sorry.
Evan Stewart,
the transfer
from A&M.
Yeah, so
the former number one prospect.
Former number one receiver.
Yeah,
that's what they're. Yeah, I think that it's obviously very early that he went into the portal. I think Alabama's a school instantly that I would have an eye on. But now that he's in the portal, other programs can take their swing and see what happens.
Steve, as we get through this early signing period, it's taken a lot of the kind of the drama out of some of the later, whether it's the February recruiting period or the later spring transfer portal. How much movement do you kind of expect after today as we get to either the later signing period or the spring transfer portal?
Well, I think over 90% of the high school recruits will be done today. So there'll still be some stories to follow after that, but most of the high school recruiting will be done. A lot of the portal stuff, there's another window that opens up in early January, so we'll see what happens there. Then after spring ball, you'll have some more portal stuff. So portals, they got their windows where it's super hot, and whenever that window's open, there's a lot of movement.
Well, Steve, speaking of the portal, or continuing off of my last point with Evan Stewart, I'm thinking about Florida State's situation a little bit and who's going to replace Jordan Travis at quarterback. They've talked to Cam Ward. They've talked to DJU a little bit. Who do you think will be quarterbacking the Seminoles next season?
Well, you're on it. Those are the two guys that they brought on campus in their recruiting. And Cam Ward also visited Miami. So I think Florida State and Miami are in a great spot for Cam Ward. He's kind of the coveted guy by a lot of programs. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those programs he chooses. And then DJ's obviously a guy that Florida State was invested in also. I don't know which one of the two that they'll ultimately end up with, but they're obviously near the top for both.
And Steve, Florida State also has a true freshman, a very highly touted true freshman coming in this class as well. Do you think they're really going to go all in on a transfer to try and give him some time to get ready?
I think they all absolutely are in the market for a veteran. I think that's clear with the two guys that they brought on campus. This is a program now that has expectations of competing for a playoff spot in the championship year in and year out. And to do that, your quarterback room has to be right. That doesn't mean that you don't believe in the young guys, but you have to create a competitive environment that has that position humming at the highest possible level.
And going to the other side of the coast, Steve, let's go to Oregon here because they get Dylan Gabriel and then kind of a weird signing with Dante Moore. And I call it weird. Maybe I guess I used the term bizarre earlier on because if I remember correctly, Dante Moore didn't want to sit behind Bo Nix. So he goes to UCLA to play. And now he's going to go back to Oregon. And if I had to predict it, the way Dylan Gabriel's been playing football, it doesn't seem like Dante Moore has a step on him, and so he'll be backing up Dylan Gabriel now. Did you find that move a little weird for Dante Moore?
Well, I didn't think that Dante Moore cared about going in and backing up Bo Nix. There was some logistics that changed at Oregon. The lead recruiter, Kenny Dillingham, who was the offensive coordinator when Dante Moore was committed to the Ducks, he takes the head coaching job at Arizona State. And I think at the end of the process, with a lot of moving parts, at that point, it opened the door for a school like UCLA to come in and make an attractive offer to Dante Moore, which they did. They got it done, and he committed as a freshman and played, but finds his way back in the portal. He's just looking for a place that's going to give him a chance to be the best player he ultimately can be. And Oregon is a place where he'll be surrounded by great players, in his opinion, play for a really good coaching staff inside a good culture, and coming in and being number two behind Dylan Gabriel, knowing that there's a runway to you to lead a program that has a chance to win a national championship moving forward is big.
Steve, as we let you go here after this, I just want to. You mentioned Amari Sander earlier. We had heard some things at Nebraska about maybe Vincent Shaver or Larry Tarver as well. Out of those three guys, what would be your guess that Nebraska ends up with?
I think all of them. I think they get them all. I think that it's going to be a fun day for Nebraska. I anticipate them getting at least 3 more commitments. And one of them may have already happened for all I know. Commitments are flying off the shelves right now at 8:54 in the morning. My phone just keeps jingling here, and guys are committing, guys are signing. So it's kind of hard to keep up with all of it. But I have Nebraska predicted to land all 3 of those guys from South Florida.
Steve, got about 30 seconds here. Do you know much about Blyle Hill?
I just have heard that Nebraska's in great shape there. Did he already?
He did. He came through to Nebraska this morning.
Yeah, big portal pickup, a guy that's got some serious traits and upside, and that's what Coach Rule and company. That's their lane. They love finding guys that they can project out. They have all the confidence in the world that they can squeeze every ounce of talent out of you if you fit their culture, and that's the guy that checked all the boxes, and Nebraska fans should be excited.
That's Steve Wiltfong, Director of Scouting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy. Enjoy the rest of a very busy day for you.
See you, Steve.
That is Steve Wiltfong of 24/7 Sports. Coming up next, we're going to try and translate what some of these kids are saying out on Twitter on National Signing Day. We will have more coverage coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.